The King's Avatar, Chapter 1665 for Victory. Audio source, wushaworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 1665 for Victory. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. 1. Lost. The two players on stage were somewhat dazed. Lu Boyuan had been extremely smug when he came up to battle, but the battle had unfolded vastly different from his expectations. He never thought that he would experience this kind of battle before. He won. He had finally cleaned out Boundless Sea's 22% health. But his instincts still half expected Boundless Sea to flip up in the next instant and scurry into the mass of NPCs, landing a skill upon Chaotic Cloudy Mountain in the next second out of nowhere. He was still completely on alert. It wasn't until glory flashed on his screen, until his camera view was changing, displaying his Chaotic Cloudy Mountain going through the various victory poses. This was a moment that would normally inspire pride in any player. But right now, Lu Boyuan wasn't feeling any of that. Even he couldn't describe his current mood. He only stared at the screen, watching his Chaotic Cloudy Mountain finish the victory poses. The screen then exited the battle, and the wait for the next player began. He won. Next player. Only now did Lu Boyuan suddenly have this kind of feeling. Only now did he suddenly feel like this victory was real. Next player. Lu Boyuan knew that he should already be paying attention to the transition to the next match, but his brain couldn't stop. His mind was still flashing with the scenes from the match that had just ended. Fang Rui's Boundless Sea seemed to be rolling once again. Of course, Boundless Sea could no longer perform any roles. Fang Rui stared at that grayed-out world displayed after his character died for several seconds before finally standing up. He walked out of the competitor booth. The stadium seemed very quiet. He looked at the large display screen. Lu Boyuan won, Fang Rui lost. In the end, he'd still lost. Fang Rui lowered his head and quietly walked off stage. The stadium was quiet, and he was very quiet as well. This was unlike his usual self. Normally, he would be inflated with pride after victory, and after a loss he would adopt a wise person reflecting 1,000 times can still make a mistake attitude. What's more, his performance today couldn't be considered a loss at all. He had fallen to Lu Boyuan in the end, but before this, he had defeated Josekai, fiercely killed Samsara's unstoppable momentum. The significance of this one victory was already extraordinary, and then afterwards, he had used 53% of Boundless Sea's health to wipe away 84% of Lu Boyuan's. Even though there wasn't much worth analyzing in this process, everyone saw one thing clearly: perseverance, perseverance toward victory. Fang Rui, this dirty player, chased victory without ever looking back. This match he played might not have been pretty, it might not have been nice to look at, but this perseverance and pursuit reached people's hearts. Unfortunately, his perseverance was stopped by Lu Boyuan's sudden explosiveness. Everyone felt the same as Lu Boyuan in his competitor booth. They still hadn't recovered, their heads were still filled with the images of Boundless Sea rolling and weaving through the crowd of NPCs. It wasn't pretty, but it left a deep impression. In this silence, Fang Rui walked back to Happy's player area. Everyone swarmed up to him, and he bravely forced out a smile. He in fact wanted to show off and act cool like he normally did, but after walking all the way back here, he suddenly felt like he didn't even have the spirit to be dirty anymore. Fang Rui sat back down in his seat, stretched his legs, stretched his arms. Chen Guo handed him a towel, and he leaned against the back of his chair and placed it over his face. It was over. It really felt like his competitive state had left him. He had already done everything that he could. So why did he still feel so unsatisfied? Work hard and you'll have no regrets. Words like that were just to fool people, weren't they? He still wanted to keep working hard. The team round hadn't even been played yet. The towel was cold, but Fang Rui felt like his covered eyes were burning hot. Ding ding ding. Suddenly he heard the alert of a text message. Fang Rui could tell that it was his phone. He truly was in no mood to check, but his teammates were right there, and ultimately, he didn't want everyone to realize that he was acting strange. He wasn't going to be able to play the team competition, but being unable to play, and not being sent to play, the difference between these things was still quite great. As Fang Rui wiped the towel over his face, his other hand picked up his phone. The match isn't over yet, and neither are you. Lin Jingyan. This guy. Fang Rui was stunned. He didn't immediately look for Lin Jingyan, because he knew that even though this guy had already retired, he wouldn't let glory leave his line of sight so easily. No matter in what corner of the world he was now, he would be watching this match for sure. But that was all. Because he had truly said goodbye to this all. Because for him, all of this was truly over. Fang Rui had no reason to talk about anything being over, because the match was still ongoing, and his own professional career was still ongoing. Fang Rui turned his head and watched Tang Rou walk on stage. This was already Happy's final player, and Samsara, including the still alive Liu Boyuan, still had 3 players left. Looks like we have to 1v3, Fang Rui muttered. Yes, that's the only way, Yishu said gravely, his arms folded. 1v3. Logically, a pro player could never expect a 1v3. They couldn't set a 1v3 as a requirement for victory. But right now, Happy's players held this conviction. They didn't hide their expectation in front of Tang Rou, because they knew that this woman would never be held back by pressure. Of Happy's remaining players, if they had to choose one person who they thought could complete a 1v3, it would be her. As she stepped onto the stage, Tang Rou breathed deeply. 1v3. The reason she had been criticized harshly this entire season was related to this. She was a bit embarrassed of how rash she had been initially, but no matter what, the greater the difficulty, the more she wanted to conquer it. This was the core of her character. 1v3 was a challenge that she always wanted to complete, but the team's victory always came first. And right now, the team's victory and whether or not she could complete a 1v3 were intrinsically tied together. This overlap lifted Tang Rou's battle spirit even more. 7th round of the group arena. Happy's 5th player Tang Rou against Samsara's 3rd player Liu Boyuan. The match began. Tang Rou's soft mist immediately charged forward. This had always been her style, and Liu Boyuan's chaotic cloudy mountain was only at 16% health right now, so there was even less reason for her to hesitate or stall. WuxaWorldAudio.com. By now, Liu Boyuan had finally walked out of previous battle. Tang Rou, soft mist. He saw the player he was about to face. This wasn't a meeting that deserved surprise. After the 4 previous players, leaving Tang Rou to anchor was an arrangement within expectations. And Tang Rou's style was very clear. She came on stage not just to knock down the opponent before her, but the one after, and the one after. Her goal would forever be to kill all. 1v3. This was the crazy promise she had once made, and because she had failed it, her name was dragged through the mud. And now, she was faced with a situation where victory required her to complete a 1v3. She must be very excited. Liu Boyuan could think of this point. Because he and the rest of the pro players could tell, this girl aimed for a 1v3 not to prove how strong she was, but because she simply enjoyed this kind of challenge. That was only the regular season, and there were only 3 players in the group arena, so a 1v3 was the most that could be done. If the regular season group arena had 5 players, no one would find it strange if this girl shouted a 1v5. Many people thought there was something wrong in her head, yet many others felt that this was an honest courage. 1v3, 1v5, these were viewed as difficult, nigh impossible. But every pro player had dreamed or imagined of completing such a thing. But they would only think about it, they wouldn't hold any serious hopes toward it. Yet Tang Rou treated this as a challenge, and worked hard to try and fulfill it. However, right now, she was fighting for her team's victory, a higher and more responsible goal. It wasn't like before, where she had been fighting for a careless promise. 1v3. In this moment, Tang Rou didn't think at all about that previous promise. All she thought of was victory. For victory, Soft Mist charged forward. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1666. Don't Cry, Lu Boyuan. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1666. Don't Cry, Lu Boyuan. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. 16%. Lu Boyuan looked at the health reaming on Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. There wasn't much health left, but he couldn't retreat. He knew what target Tang Rou was charging toward, and he was determined to strike at her head-on. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain rushed forth. At the center of the canyon, the two characters met. Tang Rou's style was always to charge without hesitation, and her common starting move was the powerful attack Dragon Breaks the Ranks. Lu Boyuan had memorized all of this, and as soon as Soft Mist appeared in his view, he was already bracing himself. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain no longer traveled in a straight line, and instead began to advance in an unpredictable roundabout way, to prevent Soft Mist from breaking through with a single Dragon Breaks the Ranks. It seemed like Tang Rou didn't care about that much. Soft Mist's movement was as straight as ever, but her camera view was tracking Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's non-stop movement, keeping him in the center of her field of view. He had chosen this kind of roundabout movement for two reasons. One was to prevent Tang Rou from using her normal method of Dragon Breaks the Ranks, and the other was that this was a common method of closing in on the opponent. Compared to gunners and other mages, battle mages and grapplers were both close-range attackers. But comparing a battle mage and a grappler, there was still a difference in their attack ranges. The attack range of a grappler was basically the length of a character's arms, within 2 units of distance. As for battle mages, their attack range included not only the length of their arms but the length of their weapon. With that, their attack range could reach a max of 5 or even 6 units. So to grapplers, battle mages were also long-range attackers. Breaking through that 6-unit range to get to 2 units, completing the close-in, was a difficult problem to solve. Grapplers' skills tended to focus on pure damage. Not including the skills of the other fighter classes, there was basically no way to restrict, control, or distract the opponent. Movement was the most realistic way. Today, Lu Boyuan had chosen to put the skill Cloud Body on Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's weapon. It strengthened his movement ability. The two characters moved closer and closer, gradually nearing a distance of 10 units. Tang Rou had held back on Dragon Breaks the Ranks. Right now, with just a few more steps, she could directly initiate attack. Lu Boyuan suddenly changed the rhythm of Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's movement. Originally, he had been moving around 70% vertically and 30% horizontally. But with a sharp turn, his horizontal movement suddenly changed to 80%, and his vertical advance was only at 20%. Instantly, the speed at which the two characters were approaching slowed down. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain, using a large horizontal movement, was swiftly moving to flank Soft Mist. Ordinary gamers might not have been able to detect much, but in the eyes of the pros, this was an extremely old and clever way of using a rhythm change to create a time disparity. Once Tang Rou had gotten accustomed to the approach speed of the opponent, if the opponent suddenly changed speed and direction, her reaction would be slowed by a half a beat or a beat. When close-range classes fought, they need to take the initiative. One beat or half a beat, that was enough to separate who was faster and who was slower. Liu Boyuan seized the initiative. The angle of attack chosen after changing the rhythm was also chosen very well. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain cut into soft mist attack range, but Tang Rou's field of view couldn't keep up. She hastily spun, but she was too slow. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was right next to her, but she couldn't catch him in her sights. She was only off by that half beat. Take the lead first. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was already reaching a hand towards soft mist, but a streak of red light suddenly swept across his waist. Tyrant's destruction. Soft mist's sight hadn't arrived, but her attack had. Just when Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was about to grab soft mist, he was sent flying by this tyrant's destruction. Slow by half a beat. Yes, she was slow. But this half-beat slow wasn't because Tang Rou's reaction was slow. It wasn't because she had fallen into the trap laid by Liu Boyuan's sudden change in rhythm. She was slow by half a beat because she hadn't used her vision to chase Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's movement. She had instead opted to directly control soft mist to use an attack. The control and launch of a tyrant's destruction would always be a bit slower than turning one's camera. This was where the delay had come from. But in the end, Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was sent flying. Falling flower palm. Soft mist slid and forced a palm out, toward the flying Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. With a boom, the palm hit, sending Chaotic Cloudy Mountain flying out even faster, toward the canyon wall behind him. After the falling flower palm hit, the fire chaser it generated shot toward him and exploded against him, swallowing him in a burst of red fire. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain took even more damage. Soft Mist's arms were already wreathed in the strength buff granted by the fire chaser, and Soft Mist charged forward. Dragon breaks the ranks. Dancing fire flowing flame was instantly in front of Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Soft Mist didn't reduce her momentum. Forward, continue forward. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's back finally slammed against the canyon wall, sending a boom echoing through the canyon. It was clear how forceful the blow had been. WuxRWorldAudio.com. But his path didn't stop there, his body actually continued to sink into the mountain wall, leaving a hole into the stone. Dancing fire flowing flame had already completely penetrated Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's body. Right now, she was extremely close to the other character, at a distance of only 1 unit. For a grappler, this was the optimal attack distance. But Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's arms were stuck on both sides of his body, he had no way of lifting them. No matter how fast Liu Boyuan's hand speed was, no matter how high his technique, no matter how strong his willpower, no matter how great his determination, he couldn't. His health reached 0. Chaotic Cloudy Mountain died. Tyrant's destruction, falling flower palm, fire chaser, dragon breaks the ranks. 4 attacks surpass the 16% damage need to end the life of Liu Boyuan's Chaotic Cloudy Mountain. Victory was decided. The winner, Happy's Tang Rou. The stadium hadn't even reacted yet. In the broadcast, Pan Lin and Li Yibo's analysis of Liu Boyuan's clever rhythm change came to an abrupt stop. What more was there to analyze? Liu Boyuan's Chaotic Cloudy Mountain was already dead. Victory was already announced. No one had really expected Liu Boyuan to win with Chaotic Cloudy Mountain's remaining 16% health, but this loss was a bit too quick and neat, wasn't it? The stadium was quiet for a while, until finally, the cheers and applause of Happy's fans rose up from a corner of the stadium. Samsara's fans seemed to be at a loss. They didn't know how they should respond to the cheers of the opposing fans. Tang Rou's clean victory had left him speechless. Happy's cheers resounded in Samsara Stadium for quite a while before finally being suppressed by the random noisemakers of Samsara's fans. They could only take advantage of their numbers, because right now, they didn't have any unified slogan to shout. They couldn't stand up together and yell "Don't pry Lu Boyuan," right? End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1667. Who's Better? Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1667. Who's Better? Translator, Noam Yummy. Editor, Noam Yummy. Lu Boyuan came down from the stage. His performance today couldn't be considered terrible, but it wasn't great either. All he did was beat Fang Rui, who only had 53% of his health left. His match against Tang Rui was no different than getting instant killed. Samsara still had the lead, though. The Samsara fans weren't angry at him. There was still applause, encouragement for his efforts. This couldn't cover up the fact that Lu Boyuan's condition wasn't at its peak. He had played poorly in the previous game. In today's game, he had been brimming with resolve, but his performance was much worse than he had expected. What's going on? Lu Boyuan felt like he had lost direction. He couldn't seem to get into the right mentality. He walked back to his seat quietly. Facing the comforting from his teammates, he could only squeeze out a smile. The match continued. Du Ming was all ready to go. Before he went onto the stage, he couldn't help but glance at the players on Happy's side. Of course, he didn't see the person he was looking for, because she was on stage. Du Ming was getting excited. He had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time, and today, it had finally come. Du Ming hadn't forgotten his previous exchange with Tang Rui. It had been a very short one, though, so there wasn't much to recall. In that exchange, he had been distracted, thinking about other things. On the other hand, Tang Rui had been completely focused on the match, demolishing him. Du Ming felt extremely ashamed. He had let down the team, and let down such a rare opportunity. That was why he had been hoping for a second chance. He had to have another try. He had to focus on the match, and complete a brilliant conversation by winning. Du Ming walked onto the stage and into the player booth. The 8th round of the group arena began. Samsara's Du Ming versus Happy's Tang Rui. The map loaded. The characters loaded. Charge. Soft mist. Moon luring frost. The two players didn't hesitate and immediately rushed forward. Soon, the two would meet at the center of the canyon. Neither of them paused to take a rest. The two were both charging towards each other. Sword raised, spear out, clash. The sound of their weapons colliding echoed through the canyon. The two started their attack at practically the same time. Then, both of them adjusted their attacks. In the end, when their weapons collided, it became one of them attacking, while the other parrying. The second, third, and fourth attacks followed. Both players were playing fast. It was an intense confrontation as soon as the fighting began. He's playing well. On Samsara's side, everyone was paying attention to Du Ming's performance. They were very pleased with his playing. His dreams come true. How could he not be playing well? Fang Minghua laughed. Everyone nodded their heads. Du Ming was playing exceptionally well this finals. It was clearly related to their opponents being Team Happy. This time, Du Ming wasn't as distracted as last time. He had turned these distractions into motivation. As a result, he was always able to perform at his best. That was why Samsara was at ease sending him out onto the stage. And now, he was fighting Tang Rui on stage once again. He didn't think about their encounter the last time, or the time before that, or the first time. In his eyes, there was only the match in front of him. In his heart, there was only victory. He became extremely focused. It was perhaps the most focused he'd ever been in his entire professional career. Openings that he usually wouldn't be able to see were clear as day to Du Ming right now. He saw the tiniest of openings and took it. Downwind sword slash. The sharp sword wind came out of the blue. A split suddenly appeared in the tight battle. Tang Ru could only have Soft Mist hastily raise her spear to parry with a normal attack, but it couldn't resist the powerful force from Downwind sword slash. Her spear, dancing fire flowing flame, was knocked aside. Soft Mist was already retreating, but she couldn't escape from the sword slash. Blood flew into the air, splashing onto the sword light. Tang Ru did the best she could to defend against the attack and reduce the damage she took. But the previous equilibrium had been broken. Sword light flashed triple slash. Moon luring frost suddenly appeared by Soft Mist's side. This was only the second slash from triple slash. Amazing. The expert blade master, Huang Shaoshan, couldn't help but give a shout of praise. The attack, distance, angle, and timing, all of it had been perfect. It was impossible to dodge this attack. It didn't matter how fast Tang Ru reacted, it couldn't be done. Another injury was added. Du Ming had the initiative. Sword light flashed mercilessly, flying towards Soft Mist. The Samsara fans were excited. The previous gloom had been swept away. Du Ming looked as unstoppable as Zhou Zikai. They began waving their arms and shouting, cheering for Du Ming. One wave kill, they shouted. It would be the greatest response to Lu Boyuan getting dismantled last round. But, one wave. By the second word of the second shout, they had to stop. Soft Mist pointed her spear towards the sky. With a furious dragon strikes the heart, she stopped Moon luring Frost's advance. Even the pro players were dumbstruck. They discovered that they could no longer predict who would win this match. No one knew what the two on stage could do. They were both playing well beyond themselves. Du Ming was playing incredibly well, but Tang Ru was playing even better. She had been suppressed by Du Ming's offense, yet just when everyone was wondering how she would be able to get out, she used one attack to turn things around and start her counter-attack. This wasn't normal. This wasn't something that could be explained through logic. The stadium screens showed a replay of the furious dragon strikes the heart, but even the pro players furrowed their brows in thought. How was she able to pull off the attack? How was she able to achieve the outcome she got? The match wouldn't stop because they were thinking. Now, it was Tang Ru's turn to be on the offensive, and Du Ming's turn to defend. Du Ming had the upper hand before, but in an instant, Tang Ru took it from him. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Du Ming didn't panic. He calmly observed the situation. His offensive had been cut off. No worries. Just get it back. Du Ming's thoughts were simple but determined. At this moment, he wasn't thinking of anything else. Even though he was playing well because of Tang Ru, he wasn't distracted by her. All of his attention was on how to win this battle. Facing the fiery assault from Soft Mist's dancing fire flowing flame, Moon luring Frost fought back with his lingering ice, a clash between fire and ice. He was only defending, but he would always strike at the most critical time, like a fireman staving off a fire. He was waiting for an opening. He didn't know when the opening would come, but he knew that it would come eventually. Formless Phantom Blade. His sword, lingering ice, suddenly split apart. Du Ming's patience was finally about to be rewarded. He seized an opening, and used the level 70 Formless Phantom Blade. Sword light weaved into a net, enshrouding Soft Mist. Her offense was suddenly put to an abrupt stop. But Soft Mist didn't retreat. If her offense had been broken, then just start another one. 100 Dragon Meteor Strike. Soft Mist also used a high-level skill. Her spear blurred into countless afterimages. Tang Ru focused the attacks towards a single direction to clash with Moon luring Frost's Formless Phantom Blade. The sounds of collisions rang endlessly. Under the inconceivable microing by the two players, neither side was able to gain the upper hand. But the experts had noticed that this balance wouldn't last forever, because there would be a final hit. Formless Phantom Blade had a final strike. It was the skill's most powerful strike, dealing high damage and having high priority, knocking the target flying back. On the other hand, 100 Dragon Meteor Strike didn't have such a tyrannical effect. Because of this final strike, Formless Phantom Blade's attack priority would reach a height that 100 Dragon Meteor Strike couldn't contest with. Moreover, 100 Dragon Meteor Strike would end before Formless Phantom Blade dealt its final blow. Who won this clash depended on how the two sides managed this final strike, and this moment was about to arrive. End chapter.